very warm welcome to everyone watching us from different countries across the world. Welcome to Girls Peace Talk episode 4. We'll be considering our topic under the theme My Voice, Our Equal Future. Hello, my name is Aisha Nasrullah and I'm a Teen and Youth Ambassador of GPI.
And hello everyone, my name is Mailaau. I'm from Maldives, same as Aisha, and I'm also a youth ambassador of GPI. And today we are bringing you episode 4 of the Girls Peace Talk. And if you haven't seen the previous episodes, I'll give you an introduction. The Girls Peace Talk is an online series of informal conversation to understand how internal peace from our individual level influences the external peace, which is the peace in our community.
Honestly, being a girl child is a really tough job since we would have a lot of rules and regulations, right? And to follow in our family, our parents are always worried about our safety. Like they always tell us to come home before this particular time and to dress up appropriately and to keep our mannered well behavior while hanging out in the public, which is very reasonable, honestly. Like a lot of us girls aren't able to go out to the streets alone, don't you agree?
I do. I feel like, especially at night, we can't go outside. And being a girl, I think it feels even more dangerous, and parents worry about us even more. We can't go outside by ourselves. We can't walk the streets, especially if it's crowded. And I feel like there's always this feeling of being unsafe while we're on the streets, which is why, that brings us to our topic, which is violence. Because violence occurs on the streets a lot, and that scares us, honestly. Because you never know if, when you're walking down the street, somebody might grab you, somebody might steal your wallet. So that fear is always constant. So even though, we might have peace somewhat, it still doesn't feel like peace if we can't walk down the streets. One half of the community shouldn't be afraid of going outside after dark.
Yes, a lot of us girls aren't able to go out during to the streets alone, especially during the night time, just you say. We are always supposed to have a guider with us if we plan to go out. And when a lot of times we go out, we are getting catcalled, which is really inconvenient for a lot of girls and which makes us feel really unsafe. And especially during the night time, we are not able to go out since that is the time that most people aren't there, and that is the time that it is most expected for us to be dragged to this particular place and get assaulted or be done with a lot of stuff. And because of this, actually, traumas are caused by catcalling as well. For some people, as mental effects due to inconvenience as well.
Exactly. And especially since it happens over a long time, every time you go out, if you're getting catcalled, it will affect you and it will make you uncomfortable. And also, in addition to this, with the risk of being attacked, with the risk of violence every time we go out, it feels like we can never escape this risk. So the obvious solution seems like we should just stay home, right? And that's what we're doing right now. Because of COVID-19, we're all staying at home, but we're still not safe from violence because we're getting more and more cases of domestic violence.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Mailaau. Due to COVID-19, a lot of domestic violence cases have been increasing. I think it has been stated on the news as well. And it's hard to escape for the victims that have predators in their family because they're stuck with their predator. Sometimes for people that can't identify what's right and what's wrong, for them it might not be easy to identify domestic violence at first, right? While some relationships are clearly abusive from the outset, and abuse often starts subtly and worse over time. It gets worse and worse if you don't take any steps towards it. Am I right?
Yes, I agree. And I feel like another thing that I feel is that when we say domestic abuse, the first thing that everyone thinks of is when there's fighting between parents or fighting between a husband and a wife. And it's true that this does happen, and it is a concern. How Maldives has one of the highest divorce rates in the entire world. And this means that a lot of like unhappy marriages are there as well. And I think not only will this affect the person who is being abused, if there are other children in the home who have to witness their parents fighting or who have to witness all the violence all the time, I feel like this would also affect them and impact them later in life as well. And also, it's important to note that domestic violence doesn't just mean adults fighting. It also means any abuse, anything that happens inside the home. So, a lot of the time, children are abused as well. If you have somebody who's abusing the wife or abusing the husband, that means like the child is at risk of being abused as well. And this is very frequent. So, it's important to note that child abuse is very common and needs to be stopped as well. Don't you think?
I agree. Like, for example, if you don't break the cycle of the abuser, the violence becomes more frequent and severe over time, just like I said before. And the effects would definitely include anxiety, depression, emotional distress, and a lot of physical symptoms as being not like physically disabled to do stuff. For example, when you are being abused. And yes, for like some people, like some women believes that no matter how abusive your partner is, you're supposed to respect him and think what he's doing isn't wrong. They may hesitate to seek for help or like maybe like may hesitate to seek for separation or divorce. And like many children are exposed to violence, just like you said, in home, and are also victims of physical abuse. Like the ones who witnesses domestic violence or are victims themselves are at risk for long-term and physical mental health problems. Like it's really hard to cure all those, don't you think? And like they would have trouble sleeping or they might overthink it, and especially at a young age, it isn't healthy at all. And like they might overthink if their parents, like if mom or dad is okay. And for the ones seeing violence between parents, may be at great risk of being violent, like in the future relationships, maybe. That is how like this keeps on going, right? If we don't raise awareness of our relationship with parents or family isn't okay, it will keep on going like a cycle, right? It would never stop if we don't raise awareness and put on steps to stop all these, don't you think?
Agreed. And especially for children, it can be very difficult because children are still very vulnerable. They're still very impressionable. So when the first impression of everything that goes on at home is violence, sometimes it's all they know. And sometimes they go to school and they act up because they think that's normal. And there are a lot of issues that can come with it. So, as you said before, like I feel like a lot of people who stay in these abusive relationships, they feel like they have to. But I'd like to give a message to them from both of us and from everyone that, like, always seek help. There is help, and you should always seek it. And if you feel like there's a child being abused, or if like there's someone abused, someone you know or someone you've heard of, then the child abuse hotline in Maldives is 1412. But then this will differ by country, so please look up the hotlines in your countries and don't be a bystander. If you feel like somebody's been abused, always speak up and always step up for them.
Do not be embarrassed to speak up for it because we have to protect our friends and family, right?
Yes. And I think another thing that's very sad is that, like, children, when they go to school, the violence doesn't end because there's
yes, like it's not only in house or any place. Like many children are like being bullied in school, which is physically and mentally destructive, right? Like boys tend to engage in bullying more often than girls, and everyone knows that, which is being really normalized, and especially at high school age and beyond. And they are more likely to engage in physical and verbal bullying. Physically or verbally, like while girls are more often in engaging in relational bullying. Like for example, if girls argue, it's called like if girls bully each other, it's called cat fights, and it's girls' argument, and everyone shakes it off saying it's normal. Like we should not be normalizing it and saying it is okay because it's clearly not. And when it mentally and sometimes physically destroys you.
I feel like it's also important to note that like bullying can happen to any gender. I know this is a girls' peace talk, but let's also mention that, boys are often overlooked when they're bullied. Everyone, like society tells them to just man up because apparently it's not okay for boys to have feelings, according to some people in society. But I think it's very important that we recognize bullying as a real issue. It is true that we underestimate it greatly. As you said, like when two girls are fighting, a lot of people overlook it and say it's just, arguments, they'll work it out and they don't intervene. If a girl and a boy, if the bullying goes on, sometimes, like something that I've heard is that like just ignore them, they'll move on, they probably like you, but that doesn't mean it's okay. And when two boys fight, a lot of the time when it gets violent, then management might step in and they might stop the fighting, but they don't stop the bullying. Bullying can be emotional, can be social, can be in any way, and it's important that none of these happen and we prevent all of these different kinds of bullying if we want to have a peaceful life.
I agree. Like, in the society, it's been said that boys should man up and they should not be crying over silly stuff and should not be sad about being bullied or anything, and that they should man up and not cry over it, right? It's not like they don't have feelings or anything. They do. Just like girls, they're humans. We all are humans, and we would have feelings. It's not only girls that this applies for; it's also boys. And like it's not your fault that you're getting bullied. No matter what a bully says or does, you should not be ashamed of who you are or what you feel. Like the bully is a person with a problem, right? So you try to view the bully in a different perspective. Don't make like the bully incident worse by dwelling on it or reading cyber bullying messages over and over. Like cyberbullying is also a part of bullying, don't you think? Like it's really famous now. Like it's especially now since it's COVID and most of this stuff happens over the internet, don't you think?
Agreed. And I think another part of it is because, like, a lot of children get devices early now. Like, I understand how it's necessary sometimes, especially now we all get school issued tablets, and a lot of children are exposed to the digital world a lot earlier. And even though, like, a lot of parents say, there's this filter, there's a safe like internet browser on the tablets, there's these filters and stuff so that you don't access inappropriate websites, but I think it's important for everyone to know that these are not perfect, and it is important that no matter how many filters you have, you should monitor what the children are doing, because it is possible to cyberbully someone even with all these filters. And it's not just cyberbullying. It is important to note that cyberbullying is also a form of violence. And like, even though some people wouldn't consider it so. And in addition to cyberbullying, there's also child grooming to worry about because a lot of predators use the internet to get close to young children and then exploit them through that means as well.
Yes, I agree. Like, for example, if you're getting cyberbullied, instead of like reading them over and over and crying over them, you should like delete all the messages and focus on positive experiences in your life. Like, there are many wonderful things about you, the things that you have to be proud of, and you should be proud of who you are. You should not like bring yourself down because of them, or like tell a trusted elderly about your experience. Don't be embarrassed to think that it's embarrassing to tell people that you're being bullied just because they are not being bullied. And I don't think that you are lacking something that other people are lacking. It's just because the bullies aren't the right people in your life, and you shouldn't be dragging yourself down because of them. And yes, a lot of people get internet access like in from a really young age, which is really dangerous actually. And this is why like children get ruined by people. And like internet is a mass, and people doesn't really you know care about who they are talking to when they are talking to someone like new, and they would be trusting them and telling them about what they feel and everything, and that is how they lead to blackmailing and all those. And like you wouldn't know the real identity of the person that you're talking to, so you should be careful about those. Parents should be monitoring their kids and who they're talking to and all. not too overprotective, because if they do, then the children's it would be hard to tell the parents about the things that they do. Don't you think?
Also, like I'd like to add to that. I feel like parents should be very careful about what their children are doing, and should also like listen wholeheartedly to when their children tell them they're being bullied. Like I feel like most parents would listen, and like anybody who is being bullied, please tell somebody. Like please tell your parents, please tell your teachers. And a lot of the time I hear people say it won't help because people won't listen. If somebody doesn't listen, then just go on and keep you know asking people for help, and you will get it. It's important to seek help, especially in things like cyberbullying. And another thing that we'd like to highlight that is very, very common in our society, especially, is sexual harassment. And I feel like the first thing that everyone thinks of is rape, but it's not just rape, right?
Yes. Like there is, for example, in workplaces, it's really common, don't you think?
In workplaces, even on the
And
streets,
people,
even at school, yes, like what people don't realize is when we say sexual harassment, we don't mean just rape. If you're being catcalled, if somebody makes you uncomfortable, if somebody touches you without your permission, that is all sexual harassment. If you tell them to stop and they don't stop, then that's an issue and you need to tell someone and bring a stop to this. And we should never normalize these things, because while like it might seem like nothing just to touch somebody, like it will have a huge impact on the person who is feeling uncomfortable. If the person feels uncomfortable at work, uncomfortable at school, uncomfortable walking down the street, that's an issue and it shouldn't happen, right?
yes, I agree. Like there is not a clear line between annoying courtship orchards and sexual harassment. Don't you think like all complaints of sexual harassment should be taken very seriously? Like employers or teachers or anybody actually, if you're the helper, don't be a bystander without doing anything. You should be investigating in a way that's fair to everyone sensitive, and everybody actually, not only people who are sensitive. And experiencing sexual harassment is one of the most difficult situations a person can face. Like just like you said, when it's being normalized, people would think that it's something wrong with them when they're feeling uncomfortable, and they would try to shake it off, but deep inside they are really uncomfy and wouldn't want to go and wouldn't be concentrating on their work and would actually fall into depression because of these, because they bottle up things inside, don't you think?
Yes, and this is a real issue. All of
Yes.
the things you just mentioned, even like they're all things that are way too common in our society: domestic violence and bullying, cyberbullying, sexual harassment. I feel like, this violence is all these different kinds of violence prevents us from having a peaceful community, because violence is the exact opposite of peace, right? And we can't have both of them together.
Yeah, and like I would also like to add to the sexual harassment part that honestly, even if people doesn't report that they're being sexually harassed or anything, like no workplace is immune to sexual harassment. And the lack of report cases does not necessarily mean that they do not that it didn't occur in there. Like some people are embarrassed of saying that they are sexually abused or harassed. We should like report any violence or suspicious actions to the police and school authorities and parents. Like don't open the door to anyone you and your parents don't know, or like you don't know, because it is really important for people to understand that fact. And yes, just like you say, peace and violence doesn't get along at all.
Agreed. So if we do want to like have a peaceful society, we need to eradicate all this violence. And there are things that we can do as ambassadors. There are things you can do as like whoever you are. But whoever you are and whatever you do, there are always things you can do to help bring peace and help reduce violence. Right?
Yes, like we could raise awareness and like keep programs on these. Like we shouldn't be a bystander, just like we have mentioned in the other the conversation that we have stayed. And we should act out and protect our family and friends from the predator. Honestly, like we unknowingly protect the predator, thinking that he's a normal family member, and we should actually be analyzing these very well and clearly, and like report if any suspicious thing happens.
That is true. And especially about not being a bystander, I feel like that's very important because our society has normalized these things to the extent that even if you see a woman being sexually harassed, it is, or even a man being sexually harassed, it doesn't depend on gender. If you see anyone sexually harassed, a lot of the times, even with bullying, we just walk away. A lot of people, like, they don't consider it an issue anymore. But
I
if you
agree.
right? If you stand up for what's right and if you defend them, then you're making a statement. And the statement that you're making is that this is not acceptable and that we don't want this in our society, right? And I feel like this could help like reduce the violence as well.
Yes, I
And then,
hope what we have
yes, okay,
said
go on.
helps raise awareness to you all, and I hope you guys wouldn't be embarrassed of raising your voices for justice, because it's nothing to be embarrassed about at all. You should be fighting for justice, and you shouldn't be bottling it up. At least tell someone elderly or someone you can trust, someone you think would help with you by that.
Agreed. And I feel like speaking out about it is very important because that's what we're doing here as well. And if we've convinced you and if you're now determined to make a change, go and like tell two more people and tell those two people what you want them to do. Tell them to stand up for what's right. And if they tell two more people and this cycle goes on, we could change the world and we could build a more successful and more peaceful society. So we
One by
hope that.
one, we all can change this whole world and build peace.
So to wrap up, I think it's very important that we address that violence does not discriminate. Violence does not discriminate whether you're a boy or a girl. It doesn't discriminate by type either. It can be emotional, physical, mental, social, and all these different kinds of violence, all these kinds of abuse. All of this needs to be addressed, don't you think?
Yes, I agree. We should be reducing all those, and like the authorities could, improve the legislation and build up more strong laws against violence and to help the people that are in need, especially during like COVID-19. People can't escape from the what do I say, the predators in the house, and for that we should like create more laws and more ways of how they can escape it in their home, and ways through internet, and how people can escape all those. Don't you agree?
I agree. And also, I feel like while we do have a lot of laws that are in place to protect girls and like people in general, I feel like we aren't implementing these enough. And we need to take this more seriously because, like, we should have the basic need of feeling comfortable in our own community. Like, as a girl, I just want to be able to walk down the street feel like, fearlessly without having to be afraid that somebody is going to steal my wallet or is going to attack me or all of these things make me very uncomfortable to walk alone as well, and
Yes,
I feel
according
like get that right. Yes.
It's like according to a lot of surveys as well, like there was a lot of answers from girls on what would they do if the world was free, and like if you could roam around freely without any guidance or anything for the girls. So some of the replies were said as I would roam around freely, just like you said. I would not be embarrassed of my dressing style, and I would not be taking anything with me in case anyone violences me and all. So this is
Agreed.
really saddening that girls have these thoughts and aren't really freely able to roam around the roads and streets that I want to go to. Don't
And
you
even
agree?
more than that, yes, even more than that, I feel like we feel unsafe in our own homes as well. Like if a girl is living alone, it's terrifying sometimes. You have to be very careful that you lock the door every time, make sure all the windows are closed. Somebody could break in, so you need your phone beside you. And we have to overthink this to the point I feel like we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't be afraid of having someone break in. But then this is a real fear because this happens. And the fact that it happens is the issue. We just want
Like,
the best, to feel comfortable in our homes, in the streets, to feel comfortable in this community and not be afraid.
yes, like we could ask the local officials, like maybe the police sergeant in our neighbor, or like the closest police place that we can tell to like use new ways to get criminals out of our building or neighborhood, like including enforcing anti-noise laws, to use new ways to get criminals out of our neighborhood, like housing codes, health and fire codes, like different kind of codes, if you get what I mean. And I think just like we discussed before, that there are codes around in public places that we can ask for help, like in restaurants and all.
Yeah, I did hear of this very innovative restaurant that had in each bathroom, it had a list and said, if you feel unsafe, if you want to escape, and if you're like in an abusive relationship, come and order this specific drink. And it was this, normal sounding drink. If you ordered it, they would help you. Like, while I know that these codes cannot be 100% effective because people will be talking about them and it will become public, fact after a while, it is important that girls have a way that they are safe, and like, and also I do think it's saddening that we girls have to think of all these innovative ways to keep ourselves safe when, like, we are not doing anything wrong. We didn't deserve to be like attacked, or we don't deserve to be like unsafe in
Which
public
is
places.
why we have to raise awareness to
Agreed.
the public, and for the children that are being violent, like abused in the house, or like for the children that are most likely to be violent in their future relationships. So we hope that this conversation gave you enough confidence and to share about your story. And I hope that what we said helps you guys a lot and helps everyone to raise their voice for justice. Not only
Agreed.
girls, but boys as well.
Yep, everyone. And I hope that this has been inspiring as well and that it'll inspire you to stand up for what's right. So thank you very much for attending this talk, to listening to us.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.